things change, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things changing right now, well, it has to be blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yeah, for sure.
You hear about it everywhere.
Yeah.
And you might even feel a little lost when it comes to actually understanding what it all means.
Right.
But that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like a crash course in all things blockchain and crypto.
Absolutely. A crash course to help you understand these world-changing technologies.
Yeah, without needing like a PhD in computer science.
Yeah. No advanced math required.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be focusing on the core concepts.
Yep. The foundational stuff.
Like, what is a blockchain?
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is cryptocurrency?
What is it good for?
Yeah. And of course, we have to talk about Bitcoin.
Of course, the big one.
The big one, right? And to help us with all of this, we're going to be using a fantastic article from FinShots.
Oh, yeah. I love FinShots.
Yeah, they're great.
Really good at explaining complex topics.
So good at it. The article's called FinShots Cracks Crypto #1. What a blockchain and cryptocurrency anyway.
Catchy title.
It is a catchy title.
Yeah.
And it was published on January 17th, 2025.
Okay. It's still pretty recent then.
Yeah, it is. So our goal today is simple. We want to break down these ideas step by step.
Make it easy to understand.
Exactly. Make it easy to understand so that when you finish listening, you have a solid grasp on what blockchain and cryptocurrency are all about.
And the article does a great job with that, starting with a really interesting analogy.
Oh, yeah, I love that analogy. I think it really sets the stage well.
It does. It talks about the Red Flag Act.
Yeah, the Red Flag Act.
Back in 1860s Britain.
So for anyone who doesn't know about this law, basically it said that early automobiles had to have 3 people with them at all times.
3 people.
3 people, a driver, obviously, a mechanic, just in case something broke down.
Okay, made sense.
And get this, someone walking ahead of the car waving a red flag.
Wow, a red flag.
The red flag.
That seems a bit excessive.
It does seem a bit excessive, and, the idea was to ensure safety, of course.
Mm.
But it really slowed down the development of the car industry in Britain.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, and the FinShots article connects this directly to the way people are reacting to Bitcoin and blockchain today.
It's a good parallel.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people are unsure about it.
It's new, it's unfamiliar.
Right, and some people think it's just a fad.
Or too risky.
Or too risky, but as the article points out, the real risk is ignoring it completely.
Yeah, we might miss out on something huge.
Exactly like what happened with Britain and the car industry.
Mm-hmm. They fell behind.
They did, and we don't want to make the same mistake with this potentially revolutionary technology.
Definitely not. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in. All right, so first up, we need to understand what blockchain actually is.
Blockchain, the basics.
The basics, right? And FinShots uses this really clever analogy of a classroom attendance sheet.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So imagine this. You've got a traditional classroom,
Okay.
and only the teacher has the attendance sheet.
Mm-hmm. The one and only.
The one and only, right? What happens if that sheet gets lost?
Oh, that's a problem.
Big problem.
Chaos.
Chaos. Or what if someone, well, let's say a mischievous student
Uh-oh.
decides to change it?
To skip class?
Maybe to skip class, or maybe just to mess with someone else's attendance.
Yeah, that's not good. There's no way to know what really happened.
Right, because all the power, all the control,
Who's got the trust?
and all the trust is in that single sheet of paper.
In the teacher's hands.
Exactly. So
Sure.
FinShots then says, okay, what if every student had their own copy of the attendance sheet?
Interesting.
Right. And every time someone's marked present or absent, everyone in the class updates their own sheet.
So everyone's in sync.
Everyone's in sync.
No more relying on a single source.
Exactly. And that's the basic idea behind blockchain.
Decentralization.
Decentralization. It's not about having one central authority controlling everything.
Right.
Instead, the information is spread out across everyone who's participating.
Everyone has a copy.
Everyone has a copy. And this makes it almost impossible to cheat or change things without everyone else noticing.
Because it would stand out like a sore thing.
Right. And this is a huge shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different way of thinking about how we manage and store information.
It's revolutionary.
It really is. And these students, in our analogy, these are what we call nodes in the blockchain world.
Right. Nodes are basically computers.
Computers that are part of the network.
Yeah. And they're all working together to make sure that everyone has the right information.
They're like the guardians of the blockchain.
Exactly. The guardians, and there are tons of them all over the world.
So how is all this information actually organized on the blockchain?
That's where blocks and chains come into play.
Blocks and chains.
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Okay.
Imagine transactions like those attendance marks being grouped together.
Okay, like into a bundle.
Yeah, into a bundle. And we call these bundles blocks.
Blocks.
Okay. And then these blocks are connected to each other.
Like links in a chain.
It's exactly forming a chain, and that's why we call it blockchain.
Blockchain. Okay, it's all starting to make sense.
Good. And to make sure that this chain is tamper-proof, each block gets a special ID.
Like a fingerprint.
Exactly like a digital fingerprint, and we call this a hash.
A hash, okay.
And here's the cool part. This hash isn't just based on the information in that block.
There's more to it.
It also includes the hash of the block that came before it.
So they're all linked together.
They're all linked together.
That's really clever.
Yeah. It is. If anyone tries to mess with a block, even a tiny change,
The hash changes.
the hash changes, and because the next block's hash is based on the original hash, well,
It breaks the chain.
it breaks the chain and everyone knows something's wrong.
So it's like a self-checking system.
Exactly. Tamper-proof and self-auditing.
Amazing. Okay, so we've got this chain. It's secure, but how do we add new blocks to it?
That's where mining comes in.
Mining. Yeah, I've heard that term, but
It sounds complicated, but it's not really. It's basically a process where computers all over the world compete to solve really hard math problems.
like a global math competition.
Yeah, something like that. And the article compares it to a lottery, where you need a lot of computing power to even participate.
So the more computing power you have, the better your chances of winning.
Exactly. And the reason these puzzles are so important is that they make it really, really expensive to cheat.
Because you need so much computing power.
Exactly. Imagine trying to control enough computers to rewrite the entire blockchain.
Whoa.
It would cost a fortune and take tons of energy.
It's basically impossible.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Okay, so what's the prize for solving these math puzzles?
Well, the first computer to solve the puzzle gets to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain,
They get to be the record keeper for that moment.
and they get rewarded with cryptocurrency.
Oh, so that's how new cryptocurrency is created.
Exactly. In the case of Bitcoin, they get Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Okay, so this whole process of solving puzzles and validating transactions, that's what we call the consensus mechanism, right?
Right? The consensus mechanism is basically the set of rules that everyone agrees on to keep the blockchain running smoothly.
And the article mentions proof of work and proof of stake.
Yeah, those are two different types of consensus mechanisms.
What's the difference?
Proof of work is what Bitcoin uses. It's all about using lots of computing power to solve those puzzles.
Okay, brute force.
Yeah, kind of proof of stake is a bit different.
Okay.
Instead of computing power, participants stake a certain amount of their own cryptocurrency.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And this gives them the chance to validate transactions and add blocks.
Okay, but it uses less energy than proof of work.
Way less energy, which is a big plus.
So to sum it up, the blockchain is basically unhackable.
Yeah, it's incredibly secure.
Because of the decentralized nature and all this computing power involved.
Right, and that's what makes it so revolutionary.
It is. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of blockchain, let's talk about Bitcoin.
The OG cryptocurrency.
Yeah, the original, right, and the article calls it the first significant application of blockchain technology.
It's the one that really brought blockchain into the mainstream.
Exactly, and it's still the biggest cryptocurrency out there.
Yeah. By far, the article says it has over 50% of the total market,
Wow.
with a market cap of almost $2 trillion
$2 trillion.
as of early 2025.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's huge. And the price has gone crazy, too. It hit $100,000 this year.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's been on a wild ride.
So Bitcoin is kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Now, the article makes this distinction between Bitcoin with a capital B and Bitcoin with a lowercase b.
Right, it's an important distinction.
Yeah. What's the difference?
When we talk about Bitcoin with a capital B, we're talking about the whole system.
The whole network.
The technology, the rules, the community, everything.
Okay.
And Bitcoin with a lowercase b refers to the actual currency.
The digital coins themselves.
Right, the units of value that people are trading.
Okay, so it's like talking about the internet versus an email.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where did this whole Bitcoin idea come from?
Well, it all started with a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto.
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, or at least that's the name he used. We don't actually know who he is.
It's a mystery.
A total mystery.
Wow, so what did he do?
In 2008, he published this white paper that basically outlined the entire concept of Bitcoin.
The blueprint for Bitcoin.
Exactly. He described it as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system,
Peer-to-peer, meaning
meaning people can send money directly to each other.
without needing a bank.
No banks, no governments, just people.
That's radical.
It was. And the timing was interesting, too.
How
Well,
so?
this was right after the 2008 financial crisis.
Oh, yeah, when everyone was losing trust in the banks.
Exactly. People were looking for alternatives.
And Bitcoin seemed like a solution.
It did. It was a way to control your own money without relying on those big institutions.
So how does Bitcoin actually work as a currency?
Well, the article describes it as a digital ledger.
Like a record book.
Exactly. A record book that tracks who owns which Bitcoins.
So every Bitcoin has a history.
A complete history of transactions from one owner to the next
And it's all recorded on the blockchain.
for everyone to see.
Wow, so it's completely transparent.
Completely transparent.
Okay, so what happens when you want to send Bitcoin to someone?
You use something called a digital signature.
A digital signature.
It's a unique code that proves you own the Bitcoins you're sending.
Like a digital fingerprint.
Yeah, kind of. And you also need the recipient's digital address.
Okay, their Bitcoin address.
Yeah, and then this transaction is broadcast to the entire network.
So everyone knows about it.
And the miners get to work trying to add it to a new block.
Okay, so it's like a public announcement.
Yeah, and once it's in a block and the
Okay.
block is added to the blockchain, well,
It's official.
it's permanent and irreversible.
So you can't double spend Bitcoin.
Nope. The system makes sure of that.
But how does it work without a bank or someone in charge?
That's where the consensus mechanism comes in again. Remember how everyone has a copy of the blockchain?
Yeah.
Well, they all work together to verify transactions and make sure everything is legit.
So it's like a giant collaborative effort.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so secure.
Okay, that makes sense. The article highlights some key features of Bitcoin that are pretty unique.
Yeah, things that set it apart from traditional currencies.
Like what?
Well, the biggest one is that there's no central authority.
No central bank, no government controlling it.
Exactly. So no one can just decide to freeze your account or stop a transaction.
That's pretty powerful.
It gives individuals a lot of control over their own finances.
And the article talks about the 2019 financial crisis in Argentina as an example.
Yeah, during that crisis, a lot of people turned to Bitcoin to protect their savings.
Because the Argentine peso was losing value rapidly.
Exactly. And Bitcoin offered them a way to escape that instability.
So it acted as a safe haven.
Yeah, a hedge against inflation.
Okay, that's fascinating. Another big feature is that it's borderless,
Yeah, you can send Bitcoin anywhere in the world.
without any restrictions.
And it's often much faster and cheaper than traditional money transfers.
Oh, wow. That's a game changer for international remittances,
Definitely, especially for people sending money to developing countries.
where traditional methods can be really expensive.
Right.
The article also talks about smart contracts.
Oh yeah, smart contracts are super interesting.
What are they exactly?
Basically, they're contracts that are written in code and stored on the blockchain.
So they're automated.
Exactly. They can automatically execute certain actions when specific conditions are met.
Like what kind of actions?
Well, imagine your car automatically paying for charging at a station.
Or your fridge ordering groceries when you run out.
Yeah. Or even more complex things like automatically releasing funds when a project is completed.
Wow, the possibilities are endless.
They really are. It's like programmable money.
Programmable money. That's a great way to put it. And Bitcoin also challenges our whole idea of what money is, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. For centuries, we've trusted banks and governments to tell us what money is worth.
But Bitcoin says trust the math, trust the code.
Exactly. Trust the system and the network.
Yeah, and that's a huge shift in thinking.
It is a fundamental change.
And another unique thing about Bitcoin is that there's a limited supply.
Right. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins.
And that's set in stone.
It's written into the code. No one can change it.
So it's like digital gold
Yeah. Scarce and valuable,
and potentially deflationary.
meaning its value could go up over time as it becomes more scarce.
Okay, that's interesting. Of course, there are also challenges with Bitcoin.
Yeah, there are some hurdles to overcome.
The article mentions energy consumption,
Right. Proof of work mining uses a lot of electricity.
which is a concern for the environment.
Definitely. And the price is also very volatile,
Yeah, it goes up and down a lot.
which can make it risky for some people.
Right. But the article also makes the point that every new technology faces challenges in the beginning.
Just like the internet did.
Yeah, and those challenges can be overcome with time and innovation.
We're still in the early days of Bitcoin.
So it's important to keep that in mind. It all comes back to this fundamental question, what is money?
Yeah, what is money, really?
The article says it's a social construct,
Something we've agreed on as a society.
and it's evolved over time
From shells and beads to gold and silver,
to paper money and now digital currencies.
blockchain and cryptocurrencies could be the next step in that evolution.
A form of money that's native to the internet age.
Exactly. And one that's accessible to everyone.
Especially people who don't have access to traditional banking.
Right. Bitcoin can give them financial freedom and control.
And the way you can store Bitcoin is pretty mind-blowing too.
Yeah, you don't need a bank account or a physical vault.
You can store it on a hardware wallet, a piece of paper, even a QR code.
Or even memorize your private key and essentially store it in your brain.
Whoa, that's incredible.
It's a completely different way of thinking about money.
And it can be sent across borders instantly.
With just a few clicks.
That's amazing.
It is, but of course there are still questions about regulation.
Yeah, governments are still figuring out how to deal with this new technology.
It's a challenge for sure.
And that's something to watch closely as things develop.
Definitely so, to sum it all up.
Blockchain is a decentralized, transparent, and secure way to record and verify information.
And Bitcoin is the first major cryptocurrency built on this technology.
It offers some unique features, and it's definitely challenging the way we think about money.
Yeah, it's a fascinating space to watch.
It really is. And while the value of Bitcoin might go up and down,
The underlying technology of blockchain is here to stay.
and it has the potential to change the world in many ways.
We're just scratching the surface.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep thinking about that red flag act analogy.
Yeah.
Are we making the same mistake again?
Ignoring something potentially revolutionary.
Exactly. Are we too focused on the price of Bitcoin and not seeing the bigger picture?
The potential of blockchain to transform industries and empower individuals.
It's something to think about, isn't it?
It is, are we going to be the ones waving the red flag this time?
Or are we going to embrace the future?
That's the question we all need to ask ourselves.
And on that note, we'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
This time, we'll be exploring the history of money itself.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, to give us a better understanding of how we got to where we are today.
And how crypto fits into the bigger picture.
Exactly. So until then, keep those minds curious.
And stay tuned.